Okay. The Zoom is preparing the YouTube, redirecting to live streaming. We'll go live. And I think we're live streaming now. Okay, are we live streaming?
Checking on my side. I haven't seen it come up yet, but
see, I don't think this was set up right, Godwin. We
Yeah,
have
it
to
is
set
there
up
now. No.
Oh, now I've got it.
Oh, there we go. I've got it.
It has a live stream, then it's okay.
Okay. You've got it? Okay. Okay. Well, see, it's an echo. It's on mine, so I hope it doesn't echo back through my system when I'm doing the Zoom. Can you hear it on live stream now? Because I can mute it on my side here so that it doesn't distract me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I'm going to mute it again on my side. Let me know if, okay, that's because it's not muted. Now can you hear me, Tony? Now can you hear me, Tony?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I
great.
still hear you.
Fine. Okay, then it's muted on my side, so I don't have to worry about that. So I can go back to the Zoom. And so I guess we're ready to go, Barnabas, whenever you're ready. Hey, Jane.
Hi, Professor.
You're on, Barnabas. You're muted.
Hello, good evening, everyone. And those of you who are out of Africa, good afternoon, good morning, depending on the hours. This is Barnabas, a Kantambira Country Coordinator for ACLENet Uganda. We are starting our webinars on Lightning, and I'm here purposely to introduce Mary Anna Cooper, who will be taking us through tonight's session. So thank you, Mary Anna, for giving us this opportunity to educate us. You're welcome. Please take over.
Thank you. Let me share my screen and get the PowerPoint up. Okay. Well, thank you, Barnabas. It's a pleasure to speak with you all. Thank you for inviting me to do a webinar. I appreciate it. Godwin has asked me to speak on lightning injuries. And I think there's more than just the medical aspects. So I've actually broken my talk down into two separate talks. I'll do the one on lightning injuries and what actually happens to people at a later time. Right now, we want to talk about documentation and risk factors. The outline for part one, which is what we'll be doing today, is introduction, the ACLENet mission, know your speakers, how many people are injured by lightning and why do we need that data, other lightning effects to Uganda and Africa, and risk factors for lightning injury, as well as mechanisms of lightning injury. When we do part two, I will be covering how lightning injures someone, what are the acute or the short term, the effects that you see right at the time of the injury and for the first day or two or three afterwards? What are the long-term effects that people have for weeks, days, months, years? What can you do, or what should you do if you're in a lightning injury situation? Okay, to get started, ACLENet's mission, as you all know, is to decrease deaths, injuries, and property damage from lightning across Africa. ACLENet was founded in 2014 and incorporated in both the USA and in Uganda in 2016. Now, one of the things is I think you need to know who your speakers are. So I'm going to give just a little bit about what I've been doing for the last 50 years. I trained in medicine, so I'm a physician. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm a physician. I did specialty training in emergency medicine at the University of Cincinnati. And for the next several years, I was employed at universities and at academic setting. There were so few people in emergency medicine back then that I got the opportunity to do many things that were foundational to emergency medicine, including writing the original training curricula and the accreditation standards for the residency programs. I've directed residency training, paramedic, and medical helicopter programs over those years. And my research and teaching interest has always been electrical and lightning injuries. Certainly during the 1980s, I was teaching doctors the difference between electrical and lightning injuries because there's a very significant difference in what is found. In 1990 or so, I began working with meteorologists, the USA National Weather Service, and international lightning researchers on lightning injury prevention and safety. In 2009, I retired from the University of Illinois at Chicago, retired from practicing medicine. By 2011, I was invited to Nepal to a lightning meeting as the lightning expert on lightning injuries. And that's where I met Richard Shimurori. Together, and in large part, and lots of credit go to Richard for founding ACLENet. The next few years, we were engaged in the how do we organize this? What do we do with ACLENet? And we had meetings in Uganda and Zambia. In 2014, it was actually founded, and we started working on many different aspects. I'm the website manager, the newsletter editor, along with Jane, the chief fundraiser, and I have a lot of other hats. I've traveled to Africa 7 times for ACLENet, 6 times to Uganda, 1 time to Zambia with that. And I continue to publish on lightning injury prevention, safety, and practice guidelines in both the medical and the lightning literature and at international meetings. So, and for over 30 years, I've been recognized as the international authority on lightning safety and injuries. Wanted to let you know a little bit about the speakers that you've had so far, Ron Holly and I. Lightning is not a hobby for us. I think the staff originally thought that it was kind of a hobby until they went to one of the international meetings and they found out that other people make their life work out of it too. Together, Ron and I have been working together as research and injury prevention partners for over 35 years now. We found early on that not too much was known about lightning. And when we tried to apply for grants, we found that the granting agencies knew nothing about it, so they couldn't judge our grant applications. So Ron and I and a few others have actually done the foundational research and done the publications that is the basis for the vast majority of what you will be learning as lightning safety advocates. Ron worked for the US government for over 20 years doing research on severe storms. That would be hurricanes, tornadoes, monsoons, thunderstorms. He concentrated on thunderstorms and lightning, particularly starting in the 90s. After he retired from the US government service, he worked for a major lightning detection company and did research with them and help them to understand the effect of lightning on people, as well as just finding out when it occurs. He's world renowned for his work on lightning, both from the meteorological aspects as well as from where injuries could occur, safety, and lightning injury prevention. And I said before, from working with him and working with the other people around the world on this, I'm recognized as the international authority on lightning injuries and their prevention. Okay, so let's get into the body of the lecture. Why do we need to know how many people are injured by lightning? Why do we need to document this? Well, first of all, define the size of the problem. So we know what we have to address so that we can use the data to get governments and granting agencies and the World Bank and other people, hopefully in the future, to fund the kind of work that we're doing to save lives and to know where to focus our attention. ACLENet has chosen to, at least for the first 10 years of its existence, to focus its attention on protecting schools, because we found that students were the ones that were the most vulnerable to lightning injury across Africa, and particularly in Uganda. So that's where we decided to spend our time. The other reason you need to know how many their injuries there are is so that you can tell if you've made a difference with the interventions you have chosen to make, whether that's education or lightning protection or adoption standards by the country or whatever. So how do we find out how many people have been injured? Well, it would be really easy if there was a government office in Uganda that whenever somebody was injured by lightning, their case could be reported to that government office. Well, that doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist in the vast majority of countries around the world. There is no place that I know of that lightning injuries are reportable. You may get them because of death certificates going through the health system. There's all kinds of ways you can collect it, but none of these are terribly reliable. Another thing that's been attempted is to estimate how many injuries there are. In fact, Ron made this estimate back in 2004. He merely took the populations of the tropical and subtropical belts around the world and the population at that time, and he multiplied them by 6 deaths per million, just because that was the highest death rate we knew of at that time. And he came up with this estimate of 24,000 deaths per year and 240,000 injuries worldwide. Well, there's been no validation of this. We don't know if it's true or not. It doesn't include the other parts of the world, the temperate parts where I live up in Chicago. And a lot has happened since then, including population growth. So we don't know if these numbers are correct. I suspect that they're way too low, particularly now knowing the types of injuries and the incidents of injuries that we see across Africa. But we don't know. Well, these are the number of countries that actually have some lightning data, the red, yellow, and orange ones. All of the white countries don't have any population data on how many people are injured in those countries. As you can see, Africa doesn't have a lot of countries where they've done the research yet. Uganda, South Africa, Zambia's done some work. Malawi's done a paper or two. But we've got a lot of work to do. Well, the way ACLENet has chosen to figure out how many, or to collect the number of people who are injured, is by news reports. This has been used in the United States and other countries to find out the deaths and injuries. But it has limitations. So far, we've collected data on 44 out of the 55 countries in Africa by country and by year. Let me show you the database. If you go to the ACLENet website and you scroll over till you get the database, pull it down, find the injury reports, and then choose country directory. When you choose country directory, this page will come up and you'll see the injury reports by country and year. As you look through it, you can scroll down and you can see all of the different countries that we have data on. Once you pick a country, and here I picked Uganda, you'll see maps of where it is in Africa, where that particular country that you choose is in Africa. There will be demographic data. There will be other data on the districts and political data and things like that. There will also be a number of years that you can choose from, as well as the lightning incidence maps for how much lightning occurs in those countries. So if I choose Uganda 2023, you'll find that there were 16 lightning injury reports for Uganda during that year. Each of these reports is downloadable Word file containing the news media reports, and if there's any particular pictures that go along with that story, not just the stock photos that the media pulls up, but if there's particular pictures of the injured people or the home that was damaged or whatever. So how many injuries are there in Uganda? Well, you can use this data to find out. Okay. You can pull up Angola, you can pull up Sierra Leone, you can pull up South Sudan. We've got so many data on so many countries. But the data, while we've got a lot of reports in Uganda, the data on many of the other countries is pretty sparse. Okay. Well, some of the limitations on the news reports for the database include it takes someone to actually make the report. And if the belief systems, particularly across many places in Africa, are that if you report lightning, there's a significant social stigma, or the population may think that you're being punished for a sin, or things like that, because of the many myths about lightning. So it may prevent people from reporting that they've been injured or one of their family members has been injured. So that's one of the areas that keeps us from collecting as many reports as we might otherwise. It also requires a stable press. Now, the press in Uganda seems to be very well tuned in to lightning injuries, but I think we can help them be even more tuned in. One of the examples is does not have a stable press is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, the DRC has one of the top lightning hotspots in the whole world. It's second only to Venezuela, okay, to a spot in Venezuela in South America. So the DRC ought to have hundreds of cases reported, but we see only maybe 1, 2, 3 news reports a year. That's because their press is not stable, because of Ebola, because of all the civil unrest over the last 30, 40 years, because of monkeypox, all kinds of problems with electricity, the quality of the internet, and the press is just not stable to be able to write, and they may not be interested either. The media has to consider lightning injuries a good story, and when they do, they will start pursuing those. That's part of our job, is to make the media know that people want to hear about this and that it's a good story and it will sell. Okay. The database, the data that we collect also reports, it depends on how much detail the reporter includes. They may only include the name, maybe the age of the person. They may or may not include what the weather circumstances were, or where they were, or what they were doing when they were injured. But we make the best of it that we can. Okay. One of the other ways of finding these news reports is through Google searches. We have several volunteers around the world who do the Google searches for English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, okay? But many of the other non-English languages, we don't have volunteers to find the reports. Also, how do we handle when there's a tribal or a traditional language in there? It's not going to be picked up by the Google searches, and we'll miss those reports. So that's, again, another place that you can help us. Now, what happens when we get the media turned on to this and they really get excited about it and they start writing all the reports? Well, we're going to see a huge increase in what we think are the number of people who are injured. But it's not because there's more people being injured. It's because more of those injuries are being reported. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Eventually, the data will become more reliable and more complete. And then it will be a better basis for the plans and the interventions that we try to make, and for being able to measure whether we're making a difference or not. I'll show you some slides later on in the talk about how we've used the news reports in the United States and to actually measure what progress we've made in lightning safety. Well, there are other lightning effects besides to people. There's certainly property damage, fires, electrical outages, animal deaths, significant problems with that. Here you see St. Teresa's School, which was a year ago today that they had their lightning fire. Well, what are the risk factors for lightning injuries? One is exposure. What's the amount of lightning that occurs? Barnabas, can you mute that person? Thank you. It depends on the amount of lightning that actually occurs in the area. You have to have lightning to be hit by lightning. So let's see how much lightning there is in Uganda. Turns out that the lightning detection company that Ron worked for, Vaisala, can tell you how many lightning strikes to the ground occur all over the world. There's also satellite data. There's a lot of information out there. We know that there are at least 2 million lightning strikes to Uganda every year. 2 million. Lightning hits where it wants to hit. It doesn't hit because of the color you're wearing or the amount of metal that's in the ground or when there's water in the sink or any other factor. Lightning is going to hit the ground and it will choose where to hit, and it doesn't care about any of those other details. Well, it's called stroke density. It's the number of times lightning hits a square kilometer per year. By the time you get up to this 24 and up, these are the red areas. The orange areas are 16 to 24. Well, it turns out if you happen to be a family that's living on the coastline of Lake Victoria here, or up in this orange area here, you're going to have lightning in the kilometer that you live in up to 2-3 times a year, just in your little square kilometer. So there's a lot of lightning in Uganda, a lot of risk. Risk factors for a particular person being injured by lightning include their profession, if they're a farmer or they are a shepherd and they're out with no shelter. It depends on someone's behavior too. If they know what to do, if there's going to be lightning in the area, then they can decrease their risk. That's part of the things that we're asking you as the advocacy team to do as well, is we need to teach people what to do to decrease their risk. It also depends on the beliefs. If somebody thinks that lightning's going to hit them and they have no control over it, then why should they do anything? We need to teach them that lightning is inevitable, but you can do things that can decrease your risk. Risk factors also depend on the infrastructure. Do people have safe places to go to avoid lightning if they know that lightning is going to occur? What do they do? What kinds of behaviors do they do to decrease the risk? And then last but not least, of course, is medical care. What happens to the people who are injured? Okay, so the risk factors that increase risk is what the stroke density is in an area. More lightning, of course, the more injuries are going to occur. If there's less lightning, like there is in Chicago, we hardly have any lightning injuries in Chicago, Illinois, USA, where I live. maybe one every other year. Okay. It depends on what the rural population is. The more people who are out in the rural areas, the less protected they tend to be. As people move to the city, they tend to move into more substantial buildings. Another is increasing population. The more people you have, the more likely you're going to have people injured. And certainly people who have labor-intensive outdoor work, such as farming, fishing, animal husbandry, they are much more likely to be injured than those who are walking around in a large city. Areas that have decreased lightning are those who have the mechanized farming that we have in the United States with these huge tractors. And one farmer can do what it took 100 farmers to do 50 years ago. As I said, another thing is inadequate building construction. This is something that we have no control over as ACLENet. We're trying to work with the government to get building standards improved, particularly as far as lightning protection. But there's a lot of other factors that I'm sure you can think of that go into how substantial a building is, how substantial and lightning safe a building is. Okay. Another thing that increases the risk of injury is little or no lightning detection data. So people don't know where the hot spots are. Here's one of the graphs I promised you. This is the United States experience with lightning deaths since 1900, so over 100 years of data now. The red line is the deaths per million, and you can see that that's decreased. The blue line is the number of people who live in the rural area as opposed to living in the city. Well, you can see that it doesn't exactly match, but certainly we've had a big decrease in deaths as people have moved to the city. So it's a combination of factors: urbanization with fewer farmers and shepherds and people who are out being exposed. It's mechanized farming with the huge increase in all the mechanical things that are used for farming nowadays. It's also because of more substantial housing and buildings for everyone across the United States. A couple of other factors that increase lightning injury: if there's little or no lightning detection, as I said before, if there's no forecasting and timely weather warnings. Right now in the United States, if there's a thunderstorm tomorrow, I know today that there's a chance of lightning tomorrow, and I can change my plans for a picnic or for being out working or gardening or whatever else might be my risk factor. That's not available in Uganda. That's something that we'd like to change as well. And then last but not least is the lack of high quality medical care, particularly when you have a multiple casualty incident, as we've seen many times in Uganda. Well, this shows what an education program has done in the United States. We started an intense educational program and really working with the media, giving hundreds and hundreds of interviews to anybody who called us up from the media or from radio or TV, and making ourselves the authorities that they would come to for questions. That's something that we can do in Uganda too. You guys can be those authorities. Well, you see that back in the 1990s, it doesn't show on this graph, but back in the 1990s, take my word for it, 60 to 70 injuries or deaths per year. By the 2000s, when we started our work, it had decreased to around 40 to 50 per year in this area. Okay. By 2010 to 2020, it had decreased to 2010, it had decreased to about 25 to 40 per year. And then from 2010 to the 2020s, we're now at less than 20 per year. In fact, in 2024, this year, we've only had deaths for over 340 million people. So, how are people injured? Well, you've probably read the numbers about how much energy there is in a lightning bolt. And by the way, bolt is not a meteorological term, it's not used by scientists. So cross that out of your language. How much lightning is there in a lightning stroke or a lightning flash? There's a big numbers, but you have to remember that not all of it actually gets to the person. A lot of it is wasted in light. You can see lightning hundreds of miles away. Okay, that's because that light's getting to you. That's energy. There's heat, there's sound, there's all of that kind of stuff. It's taking a significant amount of the energy. Even more is wasted if it strikes an area far away. Let's talk about the mechanisms of injury and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. Well, most people know about direct strikes. In fact, most people think that that's how everybody's injured is by direct strike from the cloud to the person. Turns out that at least in the developed countries, we know these numbers in the developed countries. We don't know them in Africa. The direct strikes only account for about 3 to 5% of the deaths. So we need to make our education about all of the other ways someone can be injured. Contact injury is another way people can be injured. If they're inside their home and they're touching the plumbing or are hardwired into their computer or telephone system. I don't think anybody I'm not sure if anybody in Africa still even has hardwired phones. We don't see them very much in the United States anymore either. But that used to be a significant area of injury and death. Well, if lightning hits that plumbing or wiring, even 100 yards from the house, it's going to spread through all the wiring and the pipes and things like that. And eventually some may get to you as a contact injury. Okay. This has decreased markedly in the United States. We haven't seen any inside deaths in the last, I'd have to ask Ron, but probably the last 10 years. Okay. Another mechanism, and I described this in the medical literature. It had been thought that upward leaders might be a source of injury. Well, an upward leader is when a thundercloud is intensely electrically charged. When it gets into an area, it induces an opposite charge in everything underneath it on the ground, whether that's a tree or a TV antenna or a home or a person. And what happens is that energy surges up through the person as an upward leader. Now, lots of things have upward leaders, but lightning doesn't attach to every one of them. But when lightning hits the ground, then that electric charge in the cloud is decreased. And this stream of electricity that's going through the person collapses, but it can be as I think the lowest research number that I've seen on this is 26,000 amps. That's still a lot of electricity and can still injure or kill the person. A very common area is side splash or side flash, where lightning hits another object and part of the energy jumps from that object to the person that's standing close to it. The rest of the energy will go down through the rest of that tree or tower or whatever it is, but some jumps across to the person, not all of it. Another is ground current. I think this is overestimated. In fact, there's a recent paper by a colleague of ours in Australia that has shown that ground current has been blamed for a lot of deaths. Probably it shouldn't have been. And that upward streamer is probably a lot more common than we've thought. Well, ground current is when lightning hits at a distance from the person, and it spreads out all the way across the ground. By the time it gets to your foot here and this foot, there's a potential difference between these 2 feet. And so lightning can surge up through the person and back down again. If it's an animal, they've got even more electricity, more of a potential difference between their front and back hooves if they're situated this way with the lightning strike. And that's why we see a lot of injuries and deaths with animals. So to summarize, these are mechanisms of injury. But these are in developed countries. We don't know what the distribution is in African countries or in other developing countries. Is there more ground current? Is there less contact injury? We don't know. But we can get that information from collecting those news reports and with your help. So what can you do? Well, teach yourselves about lightning. All of this research that Ron and I have done, we've worked 35, 40 years to get this information out. And now you can easily find it if you Google it. If you Google the NOAA lightning safety site and look at the medical aspects, you'll see the stuff that I've written. If you look at some of the weather and the others, you'll see the lightning flash density. You'll see the lightning safety information and the kinds of things that we can teach people so that they can decrease the chances of their injury. Look at the National Lightning Safety Council. That's that organization that started in 2001 in the United States and has done so much to decrease lightning injuries and deaths here. It's got a lot of great data about what people are doing when they're injured and also a lot of the safety rules. Google lightning safety or lightning safety education. I bet you'll get a lot of information. Another thing you can do is report these injuries. Report them to us, please, so we can add them to the database. Get a network of your people started in your home districts. So if they hear about an incident that doesn't make it into the newspaper, you can tell us about it. We can try to track it down. But we have volunteers in other countries that do this for us. We need volunteers. And there have been some reports, and I thank the people who have put those on the WhatsApp chat box, chat line there, because we try to track them down, and we will give you credit for putting those, for reporting that. If these reports are in traditional languages and newspapers in your district, please translate those and send them to us so that we can put them in the database. So what can you do? Become a lightning safety advocate. Become a lightning ambassador is one of the things that we call it. Speak to your districts, your churches, anyone who listens. Become that crazy person who's always talking about lightning. People will recognize you then, and then they know that you're the person that they can talk to about safety, about questions, about if there's a report. So build a network in your own districts and in your family's districts. Translate the safety materials into traditional languages for your districts. We'll be happy to help you with the technical aspects of that, answer any questions. It's really important. We're already starting to do this. Godwin is a great leader in this and has just finished a pilot of this in the Kalangala district where we were installing the lightning protection system in our last school a month or so ago. And work with the press and the media. Call them, congratulate them on the story they did. If they didn't get something quite right, don't berate them, don't lecture them. Maybe explain why it's not right, but get them on your side so they know you're the person to call when there's an injury or a report in your district. So that was part one. Thank you for listening. I'm not sure what the date will be for part two, but then we'll talk about how lightning actually affects people. What does it do when lightning hits somebody? What are the long-term effects? What are the short-term effects? And what you can do to make a difference. And if there's other things you want to know about this, let me know. And I think it's time for questions now. Okay, thank you. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Merana, for such extraordinary presentation and your insight. insight
Thank you.
into the complexity of the lightning and all this. Thank you so much. Now I would like to open the floor to questions to everybody. Feel free to share your thoughts or ask any questions you might have. Dr. Professor Mary Anna is here to provide further clarity and information and anything that you would want to know because she is an expert in this and I trust her so much as an individual. So please feel free to ask any questions. Those of you who have come a little bit late, don't mind, you can ask anything that you want. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Need Barnabas, and take this opportunity to thank Mary Ann very, very much for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Tony.
I thank the organizers. Really, this is something that is really wanted in Africa, and I've seen the reductions that have happened in the USA. The reduction of the number of deaths goes on decreasing, mainly because of the awareness and education.
Mhm.
Mary Ann, I have some observation here, especially here in Uganda. Where lightning strikes, you tend to find rocks, some brownish rocks in the area, and those rocks are exposed on top. You see, and most of the areas I've visited where lightning has struck, is there a linkage between such rocks and then the lightning strikes?
The material that the rocks or the ground is made of has absolutely no effect on where lightning is going to hit. Lightning is going to hit Uganda at least 2 million times a year. That's a lot of times. Okay.
Sure.
And it's going to come down. And when lightning comes down from the cloud, it comes in spurts. It comes in about 20 to 50 meter spurts, then goes back up, then comes and then divides, and then goes back up, and then comes down, divides again. And by the time it gets to be about 20 to 50 meters above the ground, then it starts thinking about where it's going to hit. Beyond that, nothing affects what it's going to hit. And lightning could care less what color you're wearing, what color shirt you're wearing, if you're holding on to a cell phone, or any other kind of factor. And it certainly doesn't care what is in the ground in that area.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Mary Ann.
That's a great question because that's one of the big myths that we see about lightning.
Sure.
Is that something in the ground or something that you've done on the ground has caused the lightning to hit where it hits.
Thank you.
One of the other things I should say is lightning is not like a bullet. It doesn't just hit one spot like a bullet would. It actually affects the whole area. So it affects that area so that you get the upward streamers from things all around where that cloud is. You can have several people injured in an area, not just one like a bullet would. So lightning is really a big field effect, if you will, to a large area.
Right.
Professor Mirana, we have a question on the chat asking which materials can we commonly recommend I think that this was supposed to be installed or to insert individuals against lightning strikes, asked by Peter. Peter, can you clarify this question? Is it recommended to insert or
Install?
Peter,
insulate?
can you ask your question verbally because I don't understand it exactly. Okay, well, I guess we'll talk about it as if it's an installation. You're talking about, I assume you're talking about what kind of lightning protection systems
Mhm.
can be installed to protect the people. I'm a physician. I'm not a lightning protection expert. I've had to learn a lot about it in this position with ACLENet, but I'm not a lightning protection specialist. And Ken Nixon, who's on, will be giving a talk about that sometime in the next month or two. So they may be able to answer your question a whole lot better. I can tell you that there are international standards for lightning protection. How do you protect this shaped building versus that kind of a building? How many arresters do you need on each building? How do you interconnect them so that you have lightning protection is supposed to take the lightning that was going to hit the building or the tree or whatever to start with and take it safely to ground. If it's a building, it takes it safely around the outside of that building to ground so that the people inside are safe. To do that, it has to be all of the lightning protection pieces have to be interconnected with substantial materials. You can't just use a little thin wire to do it because it's going to melt. Um, but the specifics of how you design that and the quality of those materials, that's not my area. But I can refer you to the people who can tell you the answers. Okay. So we'd be happy to help you with that.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Anna. We'll be having more webinars, and most of these questions you can see exactly where it fits. And we kindly welcome you, and please tell even your friends to come, because it is just a learning session. You can ask anything, no matter how it looks or how it
Absolutely.
sounds. It is very okay. We are individual. I'm not as an expert as Mary Anna, so we will learn from each other. So ask. It is okay. Thank you so much, Peter, for asking. Can we have more questions? Okay. Peter, Ken is already inviting you for the next session because he will be presenting and he will answer this well.
Great.
Sure.
That's great. That's great.
Do we have any questions so that you can understand? Don't worry about which type of question. Just ask anything you want. As we are learning.
I've worked with kids as young as 8 years old on their science projects. In fact, I've got about an 11-year-old who wants to do a science project at my church that I'm going to be meeting with next week. So we answer, and our team, it's not just Ron and me that have done this. We've got a whole network of people in the United States and now around the world, including Asia, Latin America, and several other countries in Africa, that we're all working together to learn. We're all working together to teach, and all working together to work with the media to get more information out there. So, no question, no question is silly. No question is. I bet you can't find a question that hasn't been asked to one of us before.
Mhm.
Any questions, or we call it a night?
Godwin, anything from the YouTube? Is he on? I can't see.
He's connected on the YouTube.
Okay. He probably doesn't know we're into the question. Maybe he doesn't know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
let me inform him.
Although if it's streaming, he ought to know. So I hope it worked. Oh, there's Ron. And here's the man I've been telling you about, Ron Holly, who did the last talk.
Mm.
Okay, well, it seems there's no more questions unless if the staff
Yes,
has some questions. Oh, there's Godwin. Okay.
there is someone, Kiriana is raising up the hand. You can ask Kiriana, unmute yourself and ask.
Thank you, Mary Anna and the co-hoster. Kiriana Kamulus, as it has been mentioned, from Uganda, Tororo. Mine is not a question, but to thank Mary Anna for saving our children at the Rockview School, Tororo. We are very happy, and the staff, Tororo, and the whole community are thanking you for your effort. We are looking forward to see you come back and visit us in Tororo. Thank you.
Thank you. Rockview and Tororo, some of my favorite places in the world.
Wow, wow,
I'm
wow.
so pleased that we could work with the teachers there and the school. And it's not just me. We need to thank the whole ACLENet team. No question about that. And our working group, our design team, our donors. This is a group effort. It's not just me. So, but thank you for your acknowledgement anyway. I will pass it along.
Rockview, thank you very much. And I must sympathize with you about the death of the husband of the headmistress. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry about that death. And some of us who are not able to join you in burial, but please take our condolences from ACLENet. Very sad information about it.
Yes.
I will. I will.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Bernadette is someone very close to my heart.
Yeah, sure.
There is a question. Lightning comes from the sky as one strike. How comes it kills more than one person or animals when it hits the ground?
Okay. When you look at lightning, you see that it's branched. Well, sometimes more than one branch actually makes it to the ground. At least in the United States, and Ron can correct me if I have the numbers wrong, because I've just come back from my vacation and my brain goes to mush when I go on vacation. So, but in the United States, the average number of ground hits for one lightning strike is 1 2/3 or 3/4. So that means that out of 5 lightning strikes, at least 3 of them are going to have more than one hit to the ground. Okay. So lightning often hits more than one place when it comes down. That's number one. Number two is, like I explained before, maybe you weren't online then. It's not like shooting a gun. It's not a bullet. It's not like stabbing where you just have one impact. Okay. Lightning is like taking a fire hose and spraying an area. It affects many people and many parts of that small area, maybe just a few yards in diameter, but it affects many people in there, not just one. So it kills many people. If it hits the roof of a school building that, say it's a metal sheeted roof, then sparks and pieces of lightning can hit many of the students that are in that school building, in that classroom. So it's not simple. Lightning is complicated, and we can write all the rules for it and all the descriptions for it, but that doesn't mean it reads our rules. It does what it wants to do. It's what we call capricious. It's got a mind of its own. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Mary Ann, does your answer also explain what I see in your background where you are seated now? I see those many
Lightning.
legs flowing down. I think that's exactly what you are explaining.
Well, not exactly. This is a very famous and very old picture. Ron can probably say, probably even knows who took it. And I may have borrowed it from him. But instead of having just one lightning strike, the chances are I was going to be sitting in front of it. I
Sure,
found
sure.
one that was a time sequence. So this is actually where you kept the shutter of the camera open for I don't know how many seconds. And you got, because it was night, you got several different lightning strikes on it showing up. But Ron, can you unmute? And Ron's a lightning photographer. He's a weather photographer too. So he knows how to do this and make it show up.
Sure.
I think that picture is probably over a period of at least 5 minutes, if not longer, where the storm was just stationary and the photographer was lucky to have it all at one time. In the background of my video is just a single flash.
Right. Wow. Wow.
Does anybody have questions for Ron from his talk a month ago, since he's joined us?
Sorry, I missed that one.
You know, all of these talks are recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel. So I should probably figure out a way to put that on the website somewhere so that people can easily find it, so that we have the education component on the website too. Yeah, gotta write that down. There's another job.
There is one more question here. Is there, or what are the protective gears can one wear to avoid being hit by lightning?
Unfortunately, there's nothing that you can wear to avoid lightning. The only thing you can do to avoid lightning is to be inside a substantial building. And by substantial building, I mean more like one of your government buildings, because schools tend not to be protected. 90% of the housing in sub-Saharan Africa is not lightning safe. Unlike in the United States, where 95% of our areas are safe, if there's a thunderstorm, we can easily walk just a few feet and find a safe place to be. But that's not the way it is in Africa. So there's nothing that you can wear. You have to have either a substantial building or an all metal vehicle to sit inside, because that metal shell protects you. The lightning goes along the outside of the shell of the metal vehicle, and you're safe inside. That's what we try to do with lightning protection. Is we can't put a metal shell all around a school, but we can put a web of the lightning protection system with the inner connected arresters, down conductors, and earthing systems, so that we've got basically a web around the school protecting it and the children who are in the classrooms.
Thank you,
So
Mary
sorry,
Anna.
there's nothing you can wear that's going to protect you.
Yeah,
We could make
Yeah.
a fortune if we could come up with something like that.
Sure, sure.
there is one more question. What causes lightning to kill one person in a group and leave others alive?
That is an excellent question, and one that we have wondered about for many, many years. And we don't have good answers for it. It may be as the heart is beating, there are times during the beating that are more sensitive. So it could be that it's hitting that one person is in that part of their cardiac rhythm cycle compared to the other people around them. It could be that one of the things that one of our colleagues in Australia did for us is he calculated how much lightning might, how much injury might be decreased if you were wearing leather shoes, substantial leather shoes, not the flip-flop kind of things. Um, we don't know all of the different factors. I wish we did. We
Mm,
don't know.
mm,
Sorry.
mm. Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Another more one. How is thunder related to lightning?
Okay.
Yep.
Um, Ron can answer this too if I mess up. Thunder and lightning are always linked. You always have thunder with lightning. Okay, you always have, um, uh, but you may not be able to hear it. If you're too far away, you won't hear it. If you're in the middle of a noisy city, you may not hear it. If you're in the middle of a sports stadium and everybody's cheering, you may not hear the thunder. In general, you can only hear thunder about maybe 15, 16 kilometers away from where the lightning came down, or where the lightning occurred, because it may not even come down. You can get thunder with lightning that stays up in the clouds too. Um, one of the reasons that it seems to be so, sometimes the sound appears to be so different, is that light travels at many times the speed of sound. So you may see lightning at a distance, and then it takes the thunder a while to work its way to you because it travels so much, sound travels so much slower. Ron, do you want to add to that? Make more sense of my answer?
Well, yeah, all lightning produces thunder. It's tearing the molecules apart. And so the thunder is a result of the molecules recombining again. The distance you can hear it, 10 kilometers, is pretty much about all you can. Sorry, got a bad throat. Sometimes there can be lighting up in the clouds that you don't hear the thunder very well, because it actually the sound travels horizontally rather than vertically because of the structure of the atmosphere. But we like
And
to
one
say
of the
that in the US, when thunder roars, go indoors, because if you could hear it within 10 kilometers, it's close enough. Just go. Sorry.
Yeah, it's close enough. It means that you're within, if you can hear thunder, you're already in danger, because the next time the lightning comes down, you're as likely as anything else within that 10-mile or 10-kilometer, 15-kilometer radius of where the lightning hit the last time. You're as likely to be hit as anything else in that area. So you're already in danger. Okay. Now, thunder also occurs not just because of tearing molecules apart, but when lightning comes down, it's incredibly hot and it expands all the air around it. And when the air cools down and comes back in, you get kind of a reaction, and then you get all of the reverberations of the sound as it comes towards you. The further away it is, the more it tends to be long and have a lot of different parts to the thunder, as opposed to if the lightning's very close to you, you get crack and that's it, or a very short thunder. Oh, we're overtime. Any more
Thank you.
questions, or
Thank you
you
so
want
much.
to end this,
Yeah.
Barnes?
Yes, there is one more question. Schools are adapting the use of solar energy with panels generating approximately 3 to 5 kilowatts. Don't these panels generate a lot of radiation that may result into lightning, or the environment is it totally safe?
I can't answer that question. Ken, do you have an answer for that? Or Ron, because you've worked with a lot of the solar protection before.
Marianne, if I can come in there,
Yeah.
and it goes to the point you were making earlier. The panels don't affect the lighting in the area. So the lighting is going to happen regardless. But having said that, it's important to think carefully about how you put the solar system in. So you have the risk of introducing lighting into an area. So if you have a panel on the roof and you bring it down into the building, you can introduce a path for the lighting current, and that does expose people to risk in the building, if that makes sense. So fundamentally, the panels don't change lighting in the area, but they are on the roof of a building and they introduce the risk within the building. Hopefully that answers the question.
This is Professor Ken Nixon. He's a professor down at the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa and on the board of directors of ACLENet. And we'll be talking to you in the next month or so about lightning protection. He's an engineer. So we have on the board of directors of ACLENet, we have, I'm a physician. Ken is an electrical engineer and lightning protection person. Ron is a meteorologist. Tony is an educator. And Dyla, who is not on the call right now, Dyla Zhang, is a professor and into lightning detection and satellites. And that's her area of expertise. But she also does a lot of the other stuff with us for safety and all that too. She's great.
Yeah, sure.
And she does all of the posting to the social media for us because she's young and she knows how to do all that stuff. So.
Great, great.
Thank you so much for the good work done. I think we appreciate you, Mayor Anna, for such beautiful knowledge about lightning. And if I'm not quoted wrong, I think next time we'll be having Ken Nixon as our presenter. So please, whoever is there, make it a point that you come when we send to you the dates. As we draw to a close, let's appreciate, of course, the depth of the knowledge and insight of Dr. Mary Anna, which she has shared with us. And then we can welcome you, Mary Anna, also to say your maybe last words as you want us to take it. Thank you so much.
You all can work with us to save lives. It's a team effort. I haven't done all of this. It's been a team of many, many good people over many years to make a difference and to try and teach people how they can help themselves to be safe from lightning. That's all I have to say. Okay, thank you. Oh, and the other thing was that so you don't think I'm taking credit, is I realized when I retired from the University of Illinois that and when Richard asked me to take over the directorship of ACLENet, that so many of my experiences and training and people that I knew had focused me into this, and that's God's doing. It's not me. This was all his idea. So, and I ask him all the time for guidance and help in trying to figure out what's going on. So, anyway, to God be the glory.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Marianne.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to the staff who came, Martin and Jane and Godwin for setting this up, and both Jane and Godwin for pushing it so well. Isaac is in Germany doing some training. He sent me some pictures. So he's not on the call today. So thank you to everyone else who's participated and been part of it. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody who's come to listen to it. Okay, sure. Take care. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, the organizers.
I'm turning this